Welcome to IDP Plus Bets YouTube channel. I am Johnny. I am with you tonight with my boy Axton. We are part of the IDP Plus community, and this is our part of our new under the IDP team, under the IDP umbrella. This is our new IDP Plus Bets channel. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. You're going to enjoy it. This is the start of something new for the IDP Plus team. We will have shows every week, numerous kind of betting shows. So make sure you subscribe with us. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to give you 10 futures to 2024 season bets, 5 from myself and 5 from Axton, that you can actually go on DraftKings right now. That's where we're getting these odds and make these bets already. So we're going to try to stick to all juice picks here, nothing minus, everything plus odds, to try to give you guys some good, spicy, juicy bets for this upcoming season. So I'll start it off here, Axton. My first bet, we're gonna go with lowest juice to highest juice. My first one is the Rams plus 100 to make the playoffs. And I'll tell you why. I think the Rams have a really good team. I like the moves they made in the offseason. Looking back in the last season, 2023, they had a 10-7 record. They lost to Detroit 1 point in the wild card game. But I tell you what, I really like this Rams team. Like I had said, they have one of the best coaches in the league in Sean McVay. Under McVay, his first 7 years, the Rams have made the playoffs 5 out of those 7 years. They've won 3 division games and 1 Super Bowl, which doesn't hurt either. I know we're just talking playoffs. We're not talking Super Bowl. But, really great lineage here so far for McVay. If you look at the schedule, they're not going to enamor you with the easiest schedule out there. They do play San Francisco twice. They play Buffalo, Miami, Philadelphia, Detroit. Those are some tough games. But on the good side, they do play Arizona twice. They play Vegas, New England, New Orleans, and then there's a couple games there that you can call it a toss-up. It's a good matchup. It might be a bad matchup, depending on how you see it. Those are games against New York Jets, the Chicago Bears. They play Seattle twice, for better or for worse, and also Green Bay. So not the sexiest schedule, but also not a horrible schedule. And I think the Rams actually are going to get better this season. Last season, 2023, they actually had the 5th most points for in the NFC, which is pretty impressive. 7 teams from each conference make the playoffs. So if they're top 5 in that, that's excellent. They were middle of the pack with 8th least points against, so right in the middle. I tell you what, I'll tell you why that I think will improve this year. Even losing Aaron Donald, they lose Jordan Fuller, and Jordan Fuller is not, of course, as big as Aaron Donald is, and that's a huge loss. Aaron Donald, Jordan Fuller, nonetheless, is a bad loss too. But they fixed the secondary real quick. They added Cam Curl. Great safety from Washington. They added Cam Kitchens in the draft. So I really like that duo, actually better than what they had last year. They added cornerbacks Darius Williams. They also bring in Tre'Davious White, another good cornerback. So that's a big position that they needed to lock up. I think they did a good job with that. And then when we talk about Aaron Donald, one player can't single-handedly replace Aaron Donald, but they did draft Jared Verse in the first round and then come back right in round 2 and get Braden Fisk. So as a whole, man, I really like the defense is what I'm going to start it off with here. Looking at the defense as a whole, you got Jared Verse, you got Braden Fisk, Byron Young, who had a great, tremendous first year last year. You got Ernest Jones, one of the best young up-and-coming linebackers. I'm sure if you're in the IDP community, you know that name. Then they add Cam Curl, Cam Kitchens. Man, the double cams, I like that. That's good juju right there. Not to mention Kobe Turner at the interior defensive line. So this is a really scary defense, and I think that's one thing that Sean McVay's bread and butter is making that nice defense. And I think when we talk about 8th least points against in 2023, that number is going to only get higher. I think they're going to maybe be top 5, top 6 in that regard. Now, when we talk about offense, you got Matt Stafford, who I'll mention later, who I have him in another individual bet, but Matt Stafford, if this is his last season, man, I'm all in. Good juju on Matt Stafford. I think if he stays healthy, he's going to have a tremendous year. Then you got Puka, who, of course, had the tremendous rookie season last year. Maybe should have won Rookie of the Year if C.J. Stroud wasn't the terrific guy he was too. But you know what, Puka and Cooper Kupp, I think this is a really dynamic duo. Kupp's said to be healthy, really healthy right now. As far as Puka, I don't think things will get better. I don't think he did so well his rookie year. I don't think that really could get any better. But if he can replicate that performance and Cooper Kupp can stay healthy and get back to what we had seen previous in his career, I think that's a really nasty 1-2 punch there at the running back position. Then you get Kyron Williams there, who maybe doesn't repeat the exact stellar year he had last year, but I'm still really high on him. And as far as passing game, I think this is one of the top-notch NFL offenses in the league. They did add Colby Parkinson. Personally, I'm not too high on the guy. This is somebody who maybe didn't get their fair shake. Previous teams didn't use the tight end as much. Tyler Higbee's hurt, so they brought in Parkinson. But you know what? Whether it be Colby Parkinson hits, if not, I like Davis Allen myself. I'm a fan of him, so I think they really didn't knock a peg down too much at the tight end room. Going from Tyler Higbee, who's out right now with the ACL recovery, so he'll eventually make it back too. So this is a team that really didn't change much. Of course, Aaron Donald was a big loss, but I really like the Rams this year to make the playoffs. And at 10-7 last year, and we're getting juice here at plus 100. Again, it's not crazy. It's not going to break the bank, but you parlay it with something else. And I think this is a good parlayable bet to make. So that's my first bet. My lowest odds there. They're only going to get sexier from here. So that's number one. Axton, I'm turning it over you for your first bet.
I like that first one. The Rams always seem to sneak in the playoffs, and they never really, with regard to obviously their Super Bowl run, they don't really seem to make too deep of playoff appearances, but they always seem to sneak in. Just kind of one of those teams that kind of always makes it happen. So I like that. My first one here is actually going to be for Najee Harris to get over 6.5 touchdowns at plus 105. Just to start it off, Najee's been in the league for 3 seasons so far, and he's never had less than 7 touchdowns. So, I mean, just looking at history, the guy's hit this in every year so far. Whether you like him or not, the guy's smashed this. So you're looking to double your money with this, and he's running behind the best offensive line he's had since at least Big Ben, probably even better than that. And the offense is going to be so much more successful than he's had in recent years, even I would say arguably under Big Ben, because you were looking at Big Ben at the tail end of his career where, yes, he was still the guy that you love and the Big Ben that everybody's always the household name,
Right.
But at the end of his career, it's, the statistics showing that you could really tell he kind of lost a step. So he wasn't quite the same quarterback he was early on in his career. And that offense kind of took a tumble in efficiency in those last couple of seasons. But Najee Harris still had a pretty good season. I think he was like top 5 for running backs. That's in his rookie season. So, Najee Harris is just the pillar of volume, man. He's going to get tons of work. And if this offense is running more successfully, especially than it has been under Kenny Pickett, then you're looking at longer drives. You're looking at more opportunities. You're looking at more chances to get into the red zone. And I think this offense just running more successfully is just going to lend well to Najee Harris. And if he's been able to get 7 touchdowns at minimum every season so far, and he's running behind the best offensive line with arguably some of the best offensive weapons and just best offense as a whole, this offense is going to have longer drives. You're not going to see a whole lot of 3 and outs like you did with Kenny Pickett, just not being able to get the first down or make things happen. It's going to be a lot more consistent because although we may not like Russell Wilson, the guy has been here. He's a veteran quarterback and he knows what to do and how to make an offense successful. And I think that he's going to, big head or not, I think this offense is just naturally going to operate better with him. So Najee Harris over 6.5 touchdowns. This ought to be a smash play at plus 105.
Yeah, I like that pick too, man. And Najee ended the season on a really high note. That game in Seattle he had, I think it was week 16 or 17, man. He really looked good. Really the home stretch of last year with all the ups and downs the Steelers had. I mean, I'm in Pittsburgh myself, so I know it firsthand. But actually, I like that pick so much. I'll mention him coming up with my next pick. But I actually like the Steelers so much, too, that I was going to pick them over the Rams. But I think the Steelers just have a tough thing. Sometimes John Madden, the great John Madden, says when you have 2 quarterbacks, you really have none. So, I'm rooting for Justin Fields. I'm rooting for Russell Wilson. Hopefully they win and Fields doesn't have to come in. But I do like the Steelers there myself. And, this is an exciting time for Najee Harris. And he's actually somebody who I think is a dark horse for my next bet. So I'm going to move into my next juice bet plus 275, moving up the ladder here. And that is Christian McCaffrey to lead the combined rushing touchdowns and receiving touchdowns. And I think this one's just flat out obvious to me. And the only caveat I'll say is this is money in the bank. If Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy those 17 games and play all 17. And I'll tell you why. So, I mean, looking at the last 2 years, specifically, we'll look at last year first. 2023, he played all 17 games. He had 14 rushing touchdowns, which was tremendous, second most of his career. And he had 7 receiving touchdowns, which, you know what, besides maybe 1 or 2 players, maybe Achan up to the ladder this year and push him for that. But there's not really many players in the game that can give you more than 5 receiving touchdowns in the league right now. 2022, he was actually second. He was first place in 2023 with the receiving touchdowns for running backs, but 2022 he was only in second behind Jerick McKinnon, who had a fluke year. So this is a guy who's doing it at multiple levels. He's not a one-hit wonder as far as rushing touchdowns. He can do it. He did it in 2019. He had 15, his career high. But the key thing is playing those games. He played all 16 in 2019. Then he was injured for a year, for two years, actually 2 seasons, 2020 and then 2021. He played only a combined 10 games. So that's kind of why the numbers, when you look at a career average rushing touchdowns, they're kind of not the best ever. But I do like McCaffrey. I think this is easy money. Last season, he tied Raheem Mostert with 21 combined, and Raheem Mostert did his damage mainly all through the ground, while McCaffrey's very fluid. He had 14 rushing and the 7 receiving touchdowns. And I tell you what, man, 28 years old. I think his main competition is going to be, I hate to say it, but division rival for me of the Ravens, I think it's going to be Derrick Henry, if not McCaffrey. And, you know, when we look at the age, McCaffrey 28, Derrick Henry 30. One key stat I want to mention, when you look at combined touchdowns over their career, McCaffrey's played 91 games. In those 91 games, he scored 81 touchdowns, so almost a touchdown per game. 89% of the games McCaffrey's played, he scored a touchdown. And Derrick Henry, no disrespect to him, I think if he's going to push McCaffrey here, it's going to be from the rushing aspect. It's absolutely not going to be from receiving touchdowns. He's actually only had 3 in Henry's career, 3 receiving touchdowns. So the last 2 years, Henry has not caught a receiving touchdown. Last season, he only had 12 rushing touchdowns, which is great for an NFL running back, but really kind of not great for him. In 2022, he had 13 rushing touchdowns. So, you know, I think as far as Derrick Henry, the way he's going to knock Christian McCaffrey off this is if the Ravens can just get the ball down to the 1 yard line and pound it to him so much. He's over 30 now. He's got a lot of tread on his tires, and we have Lamar Jackson who likes to run in himself. So, you know, a lot of people think Derrick Henry is in great spot for fantasy, and I agree with that. But as far as combined touchdowns, I just think absolutely there's no one better at the position to especially multifaceted than McCaffrey to make this happen. I think he gets another year in this offense. I think they finally figured out how to use him and keep him healthy. Hopefully, you never can anticipate health or injuries, but like I said, if he can play all these 17 games, I think this is easy money, man. McCaffrey plus 275 to lead the league in combined rushing and receiving touchdowns. Back to you, Axton.
I like that. I like that a lot because you know that this offense is basically built for a guy like Christian McCaffrey. I mean, the San Francisco offense is notorious for being just operating through its running backs, and when you have a running back like him, it's ridiculous, man. Like if you would have placed a prop on him to score two touchdowns every week last year, I guarantee you would have made a shit ton of money.
Right.
Week in and week out, he was still like two touchdowns. And even for a guy that's getting them at that clip, the books are still not gonna they're still giving you even decent odds on him. I mean, like it was ridiculous.
Right. Maybe Najee, a player like Najee can come out of left field. That's why I mentioned him before, going back to your pick about Najee. Like I could see Najee having a shitload of touchdowns, but at the same time, man, his biggest competition, I think, is Mostert and Derrick Henry. And I mean, Mostert, you got HN getting better, Mostert only getting older. I think it's just money in the bank on that.
Yep. I like that too. I do like Derrick Henry this year. I think that in that offense, he's just going to get the freaking wheels run off of him, but we'll see. It ought to be good. It ought to be fun to watch. On to my next pick. We're looking at just jumping up a little bit from that last one at 105. We're looking at plus 110 for Travis Kelce to get over 900.5 receiving yards this season. And to me, this is just a no-brainer. This guy has had what they said, if he would have got 32 yards this last season. Oh, I think it was like 16. He had like 16 yards he had to get 1,000, and he would have had 8 straight 1,000-yard seasons. This is a no-brainer. I mean, and if you parlay this with like my last one on Najee Harris over 7 touchdowns, or say you're Rams to get to the playoffs, you're probably looking at at triple your money easy, and something that's, very, very likely to happen. And so the fact that Travis Kelce has surpassed this 900-yard mark in the last 8 years straight, and even got 90 last year, I would say a lot of people would say that he probably had a down year. And if you're calling 968 yards from Travis Kelce a down year, then I think we are looking like wheels up this season, especially with an offense that's added more weapons, an offense that just won the Super Bowl and has all the motivation in the world to come back and try to do something that's never been done in the history of the NFL and win a three-peat. What more motivation do you want? This team is locked in. I know that the young guys on this team have had kind of their quandaries coming in, and to me it seems like they're kind of getting big heads coming into this, the former champion team, and they're just kind of making bonehead mistakes and getting in trouble. Good thing is we don't really have to worry about these guys in the starting lineup. All the guys that are going to be on the field are acting right. All these guys are focused, and their training regimen is unlike any other. They are laser focused all off season, and this team is going to come to play. And like I said, Travis Kelce at 968 yards in an off season, this is a smash play. I bet he crushes 1,000 yards this season. I'm anticipating a huge comeback for Kelce over last season. So give me this plus 110 for Travis Kelce to get over 900.5 receiving yards this season.
I like it too, man. And I'll tell you what, it's maybe like people say he had a down year, still almost had 1,000 yards, right? So a lot of people maybe fell off the train of the Travis Kelce. They draft these wide receivers. They have people to throw the ball to now. Now it's not Sky Moore and Mecole Hardman. So maybe the offseason moves kind of like held the juice up a little bit. So I like that. You're getting good juice for that bet too. And hey, I'm in Pittsburgh, but I'd like to say I watched them three-peat. So I'm rooting for, I'm rooting for the Chiefs in that regard. Hopefully they do it. I'm moving on to most regular season rookie receiving yards. And I'm not going to go with the slam dunk Marvin Harrison, but I am going to contrast and compare Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors, who is I am going to take at plus 600. Malik Neighbors, I think, I'm not going to say this is money in the bank by any means, but I think if there's somebody to push Marvin Harrison Jr. for this title, I think it's going to be Malik Neighbors. I mean, a lot of people are coming out saying they think he's going to break Odell Beckham Jr.'s rookie record of 1,305 yards. I don't think it has to go to that level, to that extreme. But I am thinking at least over 1,000 yards for Malik Neighbors. When we compare and contrast, looking at Arizona and the Cardinals, I mean, when we look at Kyler Murray, to me, I talk down on him in fantasy. He's just somebody he's a very mobile quarterback, and so is Daniel Jones, right? But specifically looking at Kyler Murray, 5 seasons, he's had one wide receiver with 1,000 yards or more, and that was 2020 with DeAndre Hopkins. Granted, it was a great year for Hopkins that year, 1,407 yards. Now on that team, you had a 37-year-old Larry Fitzgerald, just 409 receiving yards. You had a 24-year-old Christian Kirk. He had 621 himself. And then you had Max Williams, a tight end, who had 102 yards. So really, what my point is here, there wasn't much mouths to feed. Yeah, Fitz is a Hall of Famer. He was there, but he was 37 years old and really didn't he fell off, at that point, unfortunately to say. Now you look at the team this year, 2024. Of course, they draft Marvin Harrison Jr. That's the big name here. That's who we're comparing. But also you have Michael Wilson. Last year, in his 13 games, he had 565 yards. He's no slouch. This is a big prospect. A lot of people expect him to break out in his own regard. So you have that piece as the wide receiver too. Then you have Trey McBride, somebody who didn't flash early on. He still ended up with 825 yards. Me personally, I believe in Trey McBride. I'm not, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. maybe tampers expectations for Trey McBride, but I still really like, Wilson and McBride. I'm still drafting them in drafts right now, and I still think they'll have value. So I don't think this is a one-dimensional offense. They also bring in Zay Jones. We'll scratch last year, 2023. He was dealing with some injuries. But in 2022, in 16 games, Zay Jones actually had 823 yards for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So he's no slouch either. I mean, this is a much improved offense than that. I think it was 2021 or 2020 offense with Kyler Murray and Larry Fitzgerald and Hopkins and all those guys. So this is a better offense overall. And I just, man, when we talk about Kyler Murray, of course he's missed games. he's missed 18 of his first 83 games in the league. Only 8 games last year. In those 8 games, he's only averaged 225 yards per game. 2022, he's only played 11 games, averaged 215 yards per game. 2021, 14 games, which was actually his best year, 2021. He did average 270 yards per game, but that was a few years ago at this point. And, I'm not really sold on Kyler Murray. I think he runs the ball really well. I think he's a good fantasy quarterback, but as far as getting Marvin Harrison Jr. single-handedly the targets that we all expect, and to make Marvin Harrison Jr. a top, wide receiver, top 5 already in fantasy drafts, I just don't see it happening. And I think maybe all that pressure on the limelight for Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray maybe not be the best recipe for success there. I still expect Marvin Harrison Jr. to have a great year. But when we look at Malik Neighbors, man, going back to that Odell Beckham Jr. year, I mean, he was like the only, when he came in, he was the guy. He was the number one. There was really no mouths to feed. I mean, of course, in New York, they have Darius Slayton, who was no slouch himself. He had 751 yards in 2020, 740 in 2019, 724 in 2022. But besides him, they really haven't had anyone to push that needle. And I think this changes. I mean, you could say for the last few years, Darius Slayton was the number one wide receiver, and stats would back that. But I'm going out on a hunch here and saying Malik Neighbors is just going to shatter that. Maybe if Harrison Jr. was on the Giants, I would be saying a different tune. But no, the way it is, Daniel Jones is coming back. I know Daniel Jones doesn't really, move the needle as much as he's missed a lot of games. He's missed 31 out of his 83, which is worse than Murray. His yards per game is actually worse than Murray too. Granted, he was running a lot younger days, and maybe that will humble him in the offense. Maybe they're going to have him sit back and throw. Of course, there's no Saquon Barkley there, whereas in Arizona, they still have James Conner running the ball. So I think this is going to be a big shakeup in New York. We're going to see Daniel Jones sit back and throw the ball more. He's looked good in the offseason so far. So as far as comparing these two, I can understand the case to be made for Harrison Jr., but for me, I'm just going to – I mean, plus 600 juice is pretty good here, and I think he has a really good shot. He's a dark horse here, and I think he's going to get a lot of mouths to feed. Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton, I'm not counting on these guys. I'm not even drafting them in fantasy this year, but one guy I'm certainly drafting is Malik Neighbors, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had the more receiving yards. Maybe not more targets, but more receiving yards. Big electric kind of player. Throw the ball downfield and let him do his thing. So I think this is a good chance here to make good on it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I like the idea of Malik Neighbors there because you're just looking at a shit ton of volume, man. Just pure volume. Who else is there? What wide receiver from New York has finished in the top 20 since like Victor Cruz and Odell Beckham? I mean, like. They just haven't had much talent there. They don't really go up and get those elite level wide receivers. And for them to do that now, and after having paid Daniel Jones his huge contract, I think it just lends well to A, Daniel Jones maybe bouncing back, and B, when you have just that level of talent that's better than anyone else, he's going to be the guy that Daniel Jones leans on every time that he's in trouble. He's going to be looking for Malik Neighbors. So I think that's a great play for him. He's just going to be peppered with targets all year. That's great. Great juice on it too. So on to my next one. I'll try to keep it a little shorter and sweeter. We're getting a little. We've been pretty wordy. This has been exciting and so much fun. So. On to my next pick. I'm going with the Raiders to get over 8.5 wins this season. And I know the Raiders aren't all that sexy right now, but the Raiders are notoriously one of those teams that can surprise you. They're one of those teams that you almost chalk up as a W every time you see them on the schedule, but it's always one of those games that they don't go down without a fight. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I know, just being a Chiefs fan, they've always been a rival for us. So when we think that we've got the Raiders locked in, or the Denver Broncos or something, they always come out and smack us in the mouth at some point. So they're one of those scrappy teams, whether or not they have an elite quarterback or they got Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. I think that this team has enough good players around them now Zamir White has proved himself. They've got even Alexander Madison back there, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, now Brock Bowers. They've got all the weapons in the world. So I think this this offense is now improved a little bit, and this defense is even bolstered. The defensive line is outstanding now. They've kind of added and tweaked, and they're all fighting for this new coaching regime and this new coaching change. I don't know if anybody has followed kind of the narrative. I haven't really followed too closely, but I've seen enough of Max Crosby and Raiders videos and stuff coming out to know that they are back behind this coach. They want to play for this coach, and this team is motivated, whether or not they are championship caliber. They're not going down any game without a fight, and they're going to compete. And the fact that they play the LA Chargers twice, they play a rookie quarterback in Denver twice. There's 4 games that are very winnable already. You're looking at almost half of what we need to get here. And then after that, you're looking at games against Carolina, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, and then even the LA Rams. These are all very winnable games. These aren't teams that are just like top notch, top 5, maybe top 15. Like, these are all just a lot of mediocre teams, very winnable games for the Raiders. And I think I just rattled off 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teams, 10 games right there that are within reach. And if they can squeak out one that maybe was an upset, then you're looking at easy money here at plus 245. So I think this is very, very achievable for the Raiders to get this year. So again, we're just looking at the Raiders over 8.5 wins at plus 245.
Yeah, I like it, man. The Raiders, I like Gardner Minshew this year. I'm going to be coaching him in fantasy leagues. And you're right, man. When they played Pittsburgh a few years ago with Terrell Pryor was the quarterback, he had like an 80-yard rushing touchdown. Pittsburgh guy, too, so it was all full circle for him. But, yeah, the Raiders do scare me when they play good teams. They show up, and they're gritty teams. So I like that, too. Moving on to my next one. I'm going to keep this one short and simple. We're talking about IDP plus, so we got to throw an IDP bet in there from my side, too. So looking at it, I'm just going to take Alex Singleton. I think he's going to have the most combined tackles right now. Going into this 2024 season, he was actually 3rd in tackles last season. So Alex Singleton, maybe not somebody who was a household name just a few years ago, especially when he came up in Philly from the AFL. But looking at the trajectory of his career, he's 30 years old, which I'm not scared of. It's not, you still have guys, London Fletcher. You even look at, now Bobby Wagner, who can still do it in their 30s, and he's on the right side of it. He's just 30 himself. So age is not a factor. They lose Josie Jewell. Maybe Cody Barton comes up and steals some tackles, and, that takes away from my take. But at the same time, Alex Singleton has been there. I think this is, like you said, Axton, a bad Denver team. They're going to be on the field a hell of a lot. 2021, he was 11th in combined tackles. 2022, he was 5th. 2023, he was 3rd. Man, I'm thinking I'm following the trend here, and I think Alex Singleton has a good chance, if not the best, one of the best to make this bet good. And at plus 900, this is juice. Some other possible guys I like here. They could push him. I only see really 2, and that's Foye at plus 600. He's the favorite. He's the absolute number 1 favorite. So even that has juice on it too. Go ahead. If you're feeling Foye, go ahead and do that. And also Roquan Smith. I like him too at 900 plus 900, but I look at some guys that are, some contenders in this realm too. You look at Zaire Franklin, who's I think he's number 3. I'm not sure what the odds are, but he's 3rd, to make good on this bet. I just don't see it. EJ Speed came on last year, and when EJ Speed did his thing later in the year, Zaire Franklin's tackles really dipped. Then you got Bobby Wagner. I love Bobby Wagner. I still think he's an LB1 for IDP, but when we talk about moving to a new team, when he actually went to the Rams, he actually did well, but I think he didn't have 180 tackles. I think it was down at 140 total. So I think the team switch up. You got Frankie Louvu there. I think something's got to give. So Wagner, maybe Father Time hits him too. So I'm not really counting on him. Then Nick Bolton's another contender, but he had 180 in 2022. That was good for 2nd amongst linebackers, or 2nd in the league. But he had an injury-riddled season last year, and I think he's just so damn good in coverage that he's not going to be on the field so much like Singleton. The Chiefs are obviously going for a 3-peat, so it's a great team. Contrast that with all the other guys I'd mentioned. They play for pretty damn good teams too. So Alex Singleton is going to play that mop-up role. Don't ask him to, make picks or sacks or, do crazy things. But when we're looking at combined tackles, who might be number 1 at the end of the year, I think it's got to be Singleton at plus 900. Great juice, man. So I love Singleton here.
Yeah, that's a great one. Have you ever watched Singleton play? He's a fun one to watch. A lot of people say he's not a great football player, but I just last year, I'm flipping through some channels trying to watch some of my guys, just watching him play. He's a freaking This guy's got a nose for the ball. Wherever that ball is going, Alex Singleton is around it. I mean, he may not, and it seems like he's getting a tackle on every other play. Like, it's ridiculous, but it was awesome because he was on my fantasy team. I'm just watching my team's points go up. So, yeah, I really like that one. And you kind of alluded to my next pick here. So, for my fourth pick, you kind of mentioned it with that plus 900, and that's Roquan Smith to lead the league in tackles. And I think kind of in a similar situation to Alex Singleton, it's a guy that's been consistently up there in the top 5 in terms of just total tackles year after year. I mean, if not within the top 10, Roquan Smith is up there arguably every year. And last year, I think he was more in a supportive role, helping more better his teammates around him, and it really actually helped the defense overall. So he kind of took a little bit of a step back compared to like kind of where he was prior seasons. But I think this year maybe he's going to have to step up and plug some holes a little bit more because now you don't have Patrick Queen. You've got a second year Trenton Simpson who's coming in, and he looked promising obviously in his one start last year, but we haven't seen him play in a full season. He just doesn't have that sheer experience. The NFL is a different level than college, and you really don't know a player's true colors until you've seen a decent share, at least half a season out of him. You know, if we're getting halfway down the season and Trenton Simpson's getting like 10 tackles a game, this guy's popping early, you know what I mean? But generally, especially coming into these roles, it's going to be a little bit of a slow grind, and I think Roquan's going to have to make up for some of that. And Roquan's so good at helping his teammates out, especially when he feels there's a weakness somewhere. He's just a guy that's kind of all over the field, and so I think Roquan has a great chance this season to kind of help Trenton Simpson fill that Patrick Queen hole in the defense. I think Trenton Simpson will be fine, but I think Roquan Smith is going to really be a big factor in helping him get to where he's going to be. And that means taking some extra tackles and letting him get a feel for the game and how to run the position that he's going to be playing. So I really like Roquan Smith to lead the league in tackles this year. And again, that was plus 900. So we're looking at some pretty good juice. And now we're not even at our last pick. So we'll finally get to our last picks and give you the best juice we got. So give us your last pick and take us home.
Well, I'll do it in my full send-off, and hopefully Matthew Stafford, if this is his last year, what a send-off it'll be. I'm predicting he is going to lead the entire NFL in passing yards. Right now he is plus 1,200 juice. To me, it's all about health. I mean, I talked before about Cooper Kupp, Puka looking so good. We talk about Kupp healthy, Puka looking muscle, juiced out. So I really like Stafford as long as he can stay healthy. Last season, he actually only played 15 games, missed 2. He was 11th as it stands straight up with those 2 games missed with 3,965 yards. Now, that's an average of a game of 264. That's pretty good. We talked about Kyler Murray, barely 200, Daniel Jones 200. This is pretty good average, 264 yards a game. If he did that for his 17 games and didn't miss those 2 games, he would have had 4,494, which would have been good for 4th best in the league. He would have been only 130 yards behind Hawk Tua. And I tell you what, it's tough to repeat. When we look at this prop bet, it's tough to repeat year after year. So I don't think Hawk Tua is really going to be in contention here. I'm just pegging him off the board, but some natural regression there. He would have been 81 yards behind Jared Goff. I think he's due for some regression too. I don't think they'll need to throw the ball as much. And not to say don't like Goff, but I think he's not going to need to be so elite at throwing. He would have been 22 yards behind Dak Prescott, which Dak Prescott I think is a legitimate also contender here to lead the league in passing yards. So that might be a good bet for you too. Dak is plus 650 right now. So if you're interested in him, and then the next closest after him, next closest would have been Dak. And no, scratch that. I'm moving on to my next point here. Listen, when we look at the history of Matthew Stafford's career, again, if he's playing his last year, it's not like, I'm looking at him, he's old. I'll actually root for him, and I'm going to actually draft him in a lot of leagues this year. In 2011, he was 3rd in this in the stat category in passing yards behind Brady and Breeze. Well, they're not playing. They were great quarterbacks themselves. In 2012, he was 2nd, only behind Breeze. Breeze isn't here again. In 2021, he was actually 3rd in passing yards behind, guess who? Tom Brady and Justin Herbert, who had an electric year that year. So I just think that if the passing attempts are there, you know, a lot of people are praying for Kyron's downfall, and that might be the case. Maybe Kyron can't repeat that. And you know, I told you guys before, they have a great defense there in LA, but I think they're really going to need to rely on Stafford. And as long as he's healthy, I think he's going to have huge numbers. This is no shoe in. Obviously, it's plus 1,200. But I do think this is a very juicy bet, and I think this is a realistic opportunity here for Stafford and the Rams to make good on this bet and be tremendous this year in fantasy and for betting purposes too. So Matt Stafford plus 1,200, I love it. I'm going to bet it myself. So let's see what you got, Axton. Last pick here.
Hey, Matt Stafford's always up there, man. This guy slinks it. He's a freaking wide receiver guru. He made Cooper Kupp and made Puka Nacua. Like, he's ridiculous. He's the whisperer, man. So I mean, he's very possible to if he can get a complete season and his guys return back to form. Cooper Kupp returns back to that wide receiver one form. That's very possible.
Yeah.
So my last pick here, and I guess I should have cleared that up earlier when we said we were going in ascending order. We're kind of going in ascending order within our own picks. So I noticed you jumped up to 1,200. I'm going to jump down to 700, but it's my highest pick that I have for tonight, and that's going to be for Max Crosby to get Defensive Player of the Year. I threw this down last year, and it fell a little bit short. But I'm hoping and praying again that maybe we can make a little something happen, because Max Crosby is just an incredible player. He's one of my favorite IDPs out there, and the guy's just got a motor like no other. The guy brings it every single down and makes offensive lines sweat from start to finish. There's no off downs. And speaking of playing so much, the guy plays almost 100% of snaps, and for edge rushers, that is almost unheard of. You don't see that. When you're talking about the top tier edge rushers in the league, if you just compare he had like 1,030 some or over 1,000 snaps. TJ Watt had 100 less snaps. Myles Garrett, the Defensive Player of the Year last year, had 200 less snaps. Max Crosby's getting more opportunity, producing 3 times the tackles that Myles Garrett is, twice the tackles that TJ Watt is, and he's even got more sacks than Myles Garrett last year. He's only grading 2 points less than Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett was at like 94 last year. Max Crosby was at 90, almost 93. And then if you look it up, who was it? TJ Watt was at like 92.5 or something like that. So he's right up there. He is. And I'm hoping that maybe with the high motor and the extra snaps and the extra work, that maybe this year he can put it together and get a couple extra, because if you think about it, 100 extra snaps, 200 extra snaps, that's the course of maybe 2 to 3 games even. So he's playing almost 2 whole games extra than anybody else. And I'm just hoping to this year, maybe this is the year that Max Crosby can finally put it all together. He's got an improved defensive line with Christian Wilkins next to him. And now I don't know if anybody has been following Tyree Wilson. Now it looks like a freaking Hulk. This guy beefed up, and now he's going to move on the interior, and they've got Malcolm Kuntz coming off the edge on the other side. This defense I mentioned earlier has been bolstered. This new coaching regime has gone and handpicked their guys and brought in and paid Wilkins. And Max Crosby is going to have the best chance he's ever had, because now, even though the attention's still going to be on him, they're going to have to watch out for the rest of this line too. So I like Max Crosby for his. He was only he was the 3rd best odds, so I mean he's up there. So 700. I like Max Crosby's odds to get Defensive Player of the Year this year. So
I'll tell you what, I don't like it. I love it. Now let me ask you, Axton. Max Crosby has never won DPOY, right? Yeah, you know what? Maybe that's TJ Watt. Maybe he didn't win it last year because he won it. Myles Garrett got it. Maybe he can't win it this year. So absolutely, I love this pick. I love Max Crosby to get it. I think he does get it this year. He's an absolute tank, and I think the cards are in his favor. It's about time for him. So he's going to get his. The greasy wheel will get squeaked. So I'm with you on that. I really like that. I'll throw that in a couple personal bets too. So thank you for that. So guys, thank you for watching tonight. If you haven't, this is a new show. I mentioned IDP Plus Bets. We are going to be here as well as other shows all season long. So go ahead and subscribe not only to IDP Plus channel, but IDP Plus Bets, our YouTube channel. Axton and I are going to be running on some defensive prop bets. So keep that in mind. Look for those updates, more videos coming out, and we will thank you very much for showing up, and we will see you next time on IDP Plus Bets.